All right. Welcome back to another episode of the First Brothers Podcast. It's your boy Mutsa Chris Don, joined by my two brothers, Nkusi and Samson. What's goody, brothers? Okay, so listener, in this episode, we're gonna be talking about the Manchester Derby, Manchester United versus Manchester City. The game was 0-0, a very, very boring affair, I have to say, for a derby. We expect at least a goal or more in these kinds of games. And we didn't get that. Both teams were just playing very, very safe, it seemed like. Um, if I just give a quick rundown of the stats here, Manchester United actually did play better in that game. They had 13 shots as compared to City's 9. But Man United only had 2 shots on target compared to 5 shots on target for Man City. So, and then, City had more possession, 59%, United had 41%. Um, United committed 13 fouls, City committed 9, things of that nature. But the really, really apparent thing was just that Manchester United are a blunt knife. They just can't get the job done. I blame Amarim for this in this particular game because Xerxes is clearly one of your best players when it comes to creation. Scoring, the brother can't score to save his life. 100%. He can't do it. But Hojlund can't score. He can't pass. He's just a useless body on the pitch. So for you to start Hojlund and not start Xerxes was a very strange decision for me. Number one, Garnacho. The last few games, Garnacho has not done like there's literally just air in his head. He can't make the right decision at any point in time. And when he's given the opportunity to score, he can't do it. He really, really can't do it. He can't, I don't know what's wrong with him, but he's not the guy. But again, he started. So Mount is back. Mount is fit. Why not start Mount? Why not start Xerxes? Put up. Sure, maybe you can put up Garnacho. Sure, Garnacho is actually like the better. We actually can shoot. Bruno Fernandez. Things like that. I felt like there's certain things that could have been done in the beginning of the games, but his choices of lineup didn't make sense to me, right? Um, so yeah, that was just the thing that kind of like I couldn't get out of my head, and why he did it like he did. But anyway, and on Man City's side, of course, Mamouche, Foden has definitely fallen off. I think this is just not his season. It's very unfortunate. De Bruyne, obviously, they were like, okay, De Bruyne, this is your last derby ever. We're giving you, he's retiring. We're giving you your chance to like, try your best and get something going. He didn't, but obviously they had to give him that respect. Like, all right, De Bruyne, do what you gotta do. Mamouche almost scored a good banger, but unfortunately it hit the post. But yeah, man. So overall, a very disappointing game because there was no excitement. There was no, I mean, it was very telling at the end of the game when all these players are hugging each other, handshakes. When was the last derby? Like, I feel like this is the first derby I've seen that. Every other derby is like, there's just, it's hot at the end. Like, those guys don't want to shake hands. It's very like, it's very mono, it's very like noise. Like those are the derbies I used to remember, where it's like Aguero is pissed off at all you guys, and like I don't know. It just used to be a lot more charged, but now it's like these guys are hugging, kissing, you know, patting each other on the back. Like, I'm gonna see you after the game, man. I'm just gonna, I don't know. It was just like very strange. So anyway, those are my first impressions of the game. Mangoro, how did you find that Manchester Derby?
Yeah, I do agree with you there. It's become very friendly. There was an incident where I think Pep controlled the ball and Amarim clapped for him and it was all lovey-dovey. And I was like, this is very strange. But the game in itself, I think after I watched the first 36 minutes, I knew that it was going to be a 0-0 or someone was going to get a dubious penalty or something weird was going to happen because there was zero creativity. When I look at the Man City side, I don't think they did anything wrong. I think the boy Nico O'Reilly playing at left back. I think he has a good future on his hands if he just gets the continues to get the proper coaching from Pep Guardiola. I think he'll definitely improve, and I could see him cement that left back birth and make it his own as a player that came through the academy. I'm surprised that Rico Lewis hasn't done the same on the right hand side. They're playing a center mid at right back in his position. I think he should up his game. But then when I go to the midfield, there was nothing that City were doing in terms of trying to attack this United side, who have been vulnerable the last couple of weeks. So it is very surprising, as much as I know that Haaland is not there. Very, very surprising in certain aspects where we didn't see the City that we know in terms of the breaking on the transition, attacking at speed, playing in what I call the pockets. The pockets, for the listener that doesn't know, the pockets are the spaces in between the center back and the outside fullback. Those spaces cause a lot of havoc, or even just running in behind. All the City players wanted to come to the ball, wanted to be in front of the Man United defense. They didn't want to turn the defense and make them face towards their own goal. Because we know when you make that United defense face their own goal, they're scoring on goals. But for some odd reason, City didn't do that. I saw that United actually had like some sort of like a low block where they closed all those gaps, which tactically was pretty good from Amarim. We should give credit where credit is due. But I do want to also mention some brothers here, some of the stuff they've done this season, and I'm going to mention it again. Phil Foden is a scam. He is truly a scam. Like, Muta,
He's just having a bad season. Come
I
on.
know you praise him and all, but that brother is a scam.
It's just a bad
Another
season.
one, him and his brother, Bernardo Silva, is a scam. They're both scams, both of them. They register as scams. Fair, that's without a shadow of a doubt. On the City side. When I come to the United side, I think what maybe okay, I'll say this with a disclaimer. I'll say their defense, their shape and positioning of the five is starting to look like what I think Amarim is trying to build towards. However, as I said, it's a disclaimer, the opposition didn't have a striker. Let's see them in the next few games. If they start to keep clean sheets and we start to see that structure, the positioning, the spaces in between the different center backs that we saw was pretty good. I was very impressed with that. But I want to see more. I want to see them against a team that has an actual attack, actual strikers that will actually try and stretch them in different angles and see how they perform. Against the City team, City didn't do that. Let's see in the next games. I think there is some sort of coaching that's being done on the training ground. As much as we've said there hasn't been any coaching, it seems like Amarim is literally building from the ground, like in terms of like, let's just make sure that the defense is right. And this thing, as I've always mentioned, he's now wing backs are critical in the system. There's a right-footed right wing back playing right wing back. There's a left-footed left wing back playing left wing back. There's a balance to the team. The actual center backs, I still have a problem with playing Mazraoui there. He's not supposed to play there. But you're now putting actual players in the correct position. And as much as I don't rate them, you are putting CDMs or CMs in CM. You're not putting some random character where you're pulling Ericsson or Bruno and playing them in the middle of the park. They don't have the legs to cover the ground. So, as you mentioned with Garnacho, I won't say much about Garnacho. I think Garnacho is whatever he is, like at this point. Like, he's so wasteful. He has this item of he can promise you something in a game with the runs that he makes. Because I think like in the first 5 minutes, he almost got a penalty. And then after that, what did we see? We saw nothing. We saw absolutely nothing. And then another scam has registered. Well, he registered long ago, but I thought it was only right that we mention it today. Rasmus Højlund. Oh my God. That guy is a scam. That guy, honestly, like United need to take a serious look at how they get rid of him, even if they have to pay someone to take him. We've seen with Anthony, apparently Real Betis are trying to sign him on a permanent, while Chelsea are sending back Jadon Sancho, so he'll fill the void there. So, in all honesty, I think they need to attend to this Rasmus Højlund situation. It's critical. Another team that needs a center forward, interestingly enough, listener. So I think they need to take a closer look at their situation their team somehow sort of like is looking like a proper team. We'll see as the weeks go on because I think maybe it's also part of these players' contracts to be in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, and seem to do this like the whole season, and I'm pretty sure they'll do it. We'll probably lose like a random game, or you'll be like, oh, United, we thought you were coming together. Now what's happening? But shout out to them, like they're improving. Let's hopefully see more improvements. But the game in itself was boring. Like I won't lie to you, the game very like when you wake up on a Sunday morning and you see 0 goals during the day, you're like, why are we watching this Premier League? Over to you, Samson.
Just quickly, I wanted to say that Man United were lucky that Pep didn't start Doku. Because when Doku came on, Daldo was in the pits. And I feel like Doku was the best attacker for Man City, and he's the best attacker for Man City right now, especially in the game against Man United, where your back line is Mazraoui, Maguire, and Lenny Yoro. Put in a Doku. Like let him do the job. Like, you need someone who can take people on, right? And make mistakes. And whatever the case, and I feel like if he did start Doku, if he started Grealish, I feel like Grealish is kind of coming back. I feel like having those two guys play would have made a massive, massive difference. So on both sides of the park, I think, yeah, I don't know why Amorim made the decisions he made, and I also don't know why Pep made the decisions he made. Like I know he's trying to give De Bruyne his final derby game, sure, but I feel like there was a way in which Doku should have started and then bring in Foden after that, maybe. Like instead of starting Foden, like I feel like definitely we needed a Doku, or like get Gundogan off, shape it up in a way that you have, Grealish instead, and then Doku instead of Foden. I don't know, but that was just my opinion on that game. I feel like when Doku came on, it made a massive difference, and it actually improved Man City's flow a little bit. But yeah, over to you, Samson.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff you guys are saying. Tactically, I mean, just overall, the game was boring. Um, and I felt that neither coach did enough to try and figure out what the other coach was doing, like, and which is weird, especially from a Man United perspective, because, you know, Man United are like sort of the perfect team to play Man City because Man United's game, especially in the big games, this is how Amorim sets them up, is they defend in such a low, narrow block. Like this is like it really is anti-football, really. Like that's what it does. And I remember when they played us at Old Trafford, in the first half, they literally had I think it was Hoyland defending from his box. Hoyland was meeting our wingers at his box. This is your number nine. And that's how they defend in big games. And it made sense for them because then they left Garnacho a little further up and they were just hitting long balls to him and asking him to take people on and get them in behind. I thought that strategy might work against Man City because that's where Man City have struggled all year this season. Transitions, defending transitions. You know, because their main player who used to help them defend transitions has been gone for the season, Rodri. And they really haven't recovered from that, So any team that plays counterattacks has really enjoyed their time against Man City. And you even saw in the first minute, Garnacho was able to win that free kick, but they never pushed on from there. Again, I just, you look at, okay, like, let me start with United. I mean, United, their attacking problems, as much as I want to credit Amorim for the organization, I don't know what this guy does on attack, man. I don't get it. Like, I don't get how you're so defensive, but then you're also so slow in getting up the pitch. Because you even saw at the end there, Man City were actually able to get into a block and defend as a unit. If you're Manchester United and you have 10 people at the back, how are you also slow at building up at the same time? Like, why are you letting them get back into shape? Like, isn't that your whole game plan to like not let them do that? Isn't your whole game plan to hit long balls? Like to stretch the pitch? Like, why are you slowing the game down? You know, how does that benefit you if you have 10 people at your box? And from the Man City perspective, you know Manchester United are going to flood. I mean, yeah, are going to flood the middle. Three center backs, two DMs, wing backs. Why do you have one winger on the pitch? Like, Mamouche is the only one who could get in behind. Everyone else wants the ball to feed. So I didn't understand the midfield. You have four central midfielders in the team. You have De Bruyne, you have Kovacic, you have Gundogan, you have Silva. Even O'Reilly, you know, he's not really an out-and-out fullback. His training is as a center mid. Nunes is training as a center mid. So really, you have six central midfielders and a cam. What are you doing? Isn't this supposed to be like the greatest tactical mind of our generation? Like, what is he doing? What did he actually do to try and win this game? I did not understand any of it. So yeah, I was shocked that this is what the Manchester Derby has come to, and maybe it is what it is because both teams don't really have much that they're fighting for. I think Man City know that even if their form is terrible, they will probably survive and at least make the fifth spot. You know, they're not too worried about that. United know they're not getting relegated. Amorim knows he's not losing his job. You know, there's not a lot to play for. I get it, but even though, man, this was just terrible. It was even unprofessional, I'd say. Like the paying customers who went to that stadium to watch that game, I think everyone deserves a refund because honestly, what was that? Like, come on. And then you're hugging and kissing at the end, like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
that was disgusting. I will say though that, I can understand that maybe it's a function of where both these teams are in this current moment. Man City have not been their best. And this is a derby that has always been charged up and, always needs a winner. But also, these teams have never been in this position before, where like Man United is dwindling at 13, 14. Man City is scrambling to try and make it into the Champions League. And this is kind of like, so I don't know. I think maybe like both managers were like, okay, you know what? If we keep this as a draw, like, like let's make the least amount of mistakes possible, just so that, because whoever lost that match, the abuse they're gonna face this week was gonna be crazy. If Pep lost to United, he was gonna be getting dogged down by Man City fans. Like, at least come on, man, how could you lose to this shit United team? If Amorim got beaten by Man City, people would be like, Amorim, bro, what are you doing? Like, how are you getting fucked like this? Like, how are you getting like cooked by Man City with this Man City team? How are you, and given our position in the table, how are you? So I think that there was a lot of fear and a lot of like self-preservation and a lot of like, oh, we can't do too much right now. We just need to keep it calm, keep it simple, so that we can just survive to next week. Because this game is so like we've both had a terrible season, and losing this derby will just make it more worse, much worse for whoever loses it. Right. So I think maybe that's also kind of what fit into it. So maybe at the end there when the players were hugging and kissing, there was just like a moment of relief for both sides to say, hey, we survived. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for not embarrassing us today. It was just a collective relief from both teams. So I wonder if maybe that's a part of the psychology that kind of went into why that game was so boring.
But yeah, I do want to give credit to United. I'd say road to 40 points is closer. They're now on 38 points, so they have 7 games to get to um 40 points. They're sitting comfortably in the Premier League right now. I think they're in third place on page 2 of the Premier League. So that's a commendable position to be in. That's Premier League safety, I believe. So they're doing well in that regard. Hopefully they do well in Europa League because them and Spurs literally, if they go out of the Europa League or any this week or the next week, there's pretty much nothing they're playing for at this point. Like it's just shambolic at those two particular clubs, what we're seeing there. So hopefully it works out for both clubs and they move up the table next season or they stay there. We'll be here for that.
I was gonna ask. So there was this conversation that Gary Neville and the other pundits were having about teams no longer having we're no longer seeing the pizzazz or like the individuality of players shining through. We're seeing more like it's like robotic at this, like that's kind of what we're seeing now, where, you're not seeing a player come in and they just have that je ne sais quoi type, like, oh, I'm gonna take this game and I'm just gonna like do a couple flicks. And yeah, I think maybe Bruno Fernandes is somewhat like that for United, but we haven't really seen as much of that, even at like Man City. Like maybe a Doku can maybe he's trying, but Pep doesn't like players who show too much individuality. It's more of like system work now, and a lot of teams are trying to emulate that. And, you know, Gary Neville was talking about how that has made football boring. Like it's made games less exciting because, coaches are trying to emulate what Pep has done and they're failing at it because Pep is the only person who can do it and do it well. These other guys trying to sniff out individual excellence is actually like doing more harm than good. And, there's a fear of what football will look like, in the next coming seasons, because if this trend keeps continuing, then it just means we're not going to see players like Eden Hazard or, we're starting to even see players like leave the Premier League to go play elsewhere, where maybe they can express themselves a little better, as compared to what they can do in the Premier League. So I don't know what you guys think about what we're seeing now from these teams and kind of like the direction that football is taking in the Premier League. All these teams and just like, are we getting better or worse in terms of like what's entertainment, like the entertainment value of the Premier League? Like, is it increasing or decreasing? So anyway, I wanted to hear you guys' opinions on that.
Well, I would say I don't necessarily agree with the point that football is becoming less exciting. I think people sort of ignore the exciting parts of today's game and focus to like there's always nostalgia, There's always people looking back 5 years, 10 years and saying, "Oh man, that was peak, wasn't it?" Like I even see Arsenal fans do it. Like Arsenal fans will pull up clips of us in 2013 or 2012 where we scored those lovely team goals. We're like, "Oh man, that was peak, wasn't it?" And it's like, dude, we finished fourth. We had 65 points. What are you talking about? That was not peak. We were actually in the trenches, if you remember correctly, because I lived through those years and I remember, like, so I think what's happened is the quality of coaching has increased. I think you can say that undoubtedly. Coaches have become very good at figuring out, like, not just what tactics work, but what systems in general work, right? So, like, coaches will talk about, like, how do we press? How do we, and how long do we press for? Like, you see some coaches, they'll press very hard for 5 seconds, then they'll drop into a block. You see some coaches maintain a high press throughout the game. You see some coaches focus on, like, just keeping the ball at all costs. You see some coaches focus on like playing very long but very direct balls like Liverpool. So, you know, when you see a coach do that, you know, you have to respond to it as well, right? So, for example, I think the Pep Klopp dynamic was very interesting because, funny enough, we're talking about Man City and United. Pep and Klopp had a lot of nil-nils, but they were very exciting nil-nils. It was like the exact opposite of what we saw. And what was happening is you had one coach with one style and another coach with a different style, and they're both trying to figure out how to beat the other guy using their own styles. And I think what's happening more and more often is that coaches are trying not to get beat more than they're trying to win. And I see this a lot in the teams Arsenal plays. Like, for example, we played Fulham very recently. Fulham played a back five against us. They go to Liverpool, they play their back four. And that is the story for a lot of teams. Newcastle does it to us all the time. When we come on the schedule, they play a back five, then they return to their back four. So you see coaches focusing on how do we stop the other team versus how do we win the game. And a lot of that, how do we stop the other team, ends up being, okay, you, the right winger, you, the left winger, you have this specific job for this game. Don't do that flick nonsense that you usually do. Don't make that run you usually do. Don't go there. Stay here and do your job. Because, at the end of the day, these coaches, this is their job, and they're figuring out that, hey, if I stick to my rigid system, sure, I may not play the most exciting football, but I might get some points, you know? So, for example, West Ham, uh, Everton, uh, Newcastle all changed their systems when Arsenal came to town. All walked away with points at the end of the game, you know? Were those games exciting? Not really. You know, did they have a lot of flicks, a lot of skills on show? No. Did they win? Did they get points? Yeah. So, I think it's just that balance. And, more and more coaches are buying into this idea that I don't mind being boring. I don't mind, you know, sticking very strictly to my system if it means I get more points. And it's just what you're seeing. And if that means the games are less entertaining for some people, then, I'm sorry, but you guys want to win. So like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. One thing I don't want to mention, just talking about United, is I was happy to see Luke Shaw. I'd forgotten that he was a soccer player, so just want to shout out to him, Luke Shaw. Good to see you back. You'll lay off the food now. But when I look at the coaching aspect in football, I do want to paint a quick, I want to pose a question to the beautiful listener. In these comments that Gary Neville, sometimes he says outrageous things, sometimes he says things that are truly valid. And the question I ask myself is, if United were challenging for the league, would he be saying these things he's saying now? Just a question. There your listeners will let us know what they think. But when I think of the coaching and the football and in itself, I think, as we've mentioned, it's a couple of things. One, it's overcoaching of players. Some of these players are being overcoached. You can see that it's like a script. It's like if this player is not coached in a particular way, if they don't perform what's been drilled into them, they sit outside because they didn't follow instruction. And it's like some of these coaches, it's like to them, it's like an orchestra. They don't let the players do it themselves. It's like when you move into this position, when you invert and step into midfield, the midfielder steps into the next channel. Then the winger comes inside, and then the attacker drops in, and then the striker drops in and plays a 1-2, and then someone's gonna go in behind and make that run. So like it's in their coaches' minds, it seems like this orchestra that they see as something that they can do. But in actual reality, when someone puts 10 people behind the ball, as Samson mentioned, like that goes out the window. You need someone who's just going to do something out of nowhere. Take a shot outside the box. It goes in. That team that was defending, their tactic has changed. They have to come out and play now. What does that do? It opens gaps for you, the attacking team, to get more opportunities. That's one. The other thing I do want to mention is a lot of these owners, they're all about the philosophy of playing beautiful football rather than getting results. Like when Gary O'Neill was fired by Bournemouth because he was playing terrible football but getting results, they went for Andoni Raiola. And at the beginning, they were calling for his head. When he first started at Bournemouth, they were calling for his head. Now look at the transition that they've made to the kind of football they're playing now. So, in all honesty, I do believe that it's more now on these owners that we all want to see some sort of like Pep region in the Premier League where you play like Pep Guardiola, you play carpet soccer, you play that kind of football. Because maybe they also think about their fans. Even at Brighton, they got rid of De Zerbi because they wanted to see this new progressive play by what's his name? I forgot
Hurtado.
his name. Yeah, Fabian Hurtler. They want to see more progressive soccer. So for them, another case in point, where most of these teams are now focusing a lot on the carpet soccer, the stuff that looks nice on the eye, because gone are the days when we would watch Stoke City. Like no one would want to see Stoke City. I do see Brentford try reenact it from time to time. It's not the same. Those guys were professionals at that thing. Like when they played it, like, and for some odd reason, it was actually very entertaining. Even when they were playing against your own team, you'd be like, "Oh, damn, Stoke is at it again." And it was, you couldn't defend it. But now everyone that's trying it just seems to do it in a very strange way. But then also, what does that do? It also creates problems in the league where now people like Russell Martin and Ruud van Nistelrooy, they can believe, even Kieran McKenna, they believe that they can also play this brand of football because it's what everyone's doing and it'll get them results. Whereas that landed all three of them in the relegation zone. So I think gone are the days of pragmatic results driven football. Like when you think about when Jose came to the Premier League, even when he returned, like it was like a 1-0. They you score when they score. Once he puts on John Obi Mikel, it was finished. You couldn't do anything at that point. It was a wall. Whereas now it's like even if you score one, we want to score more. But during those times, it was different. And I think those coaches no longer exist. Like parking the bus, Tuchel, Di Matteo, that kind of play. That's not there anymore. All these teams want to be progressive. Maybe that's what the fans ask for, and that's what they want to see. That's what the owners want to see. And I think maybe they believe that results will come eventually. But I'd say it's a long-term exercise that maybe in the future it could potentially happen. But right now, everyone is like, it's Pep, and then it's like everyone gets given the mandate of, okay, there's Pep, there's you. Can you just create a version that looks like what he does and then play that? We want that. And if you don't abide by that, you get shown the door.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, like, yeah, I do agree with both your sentiments, and I do also would say that across the board, there has been a lot of improvement in these teams. Like, I don't think there's ever been a stage at which we're seeing the likes of Nottingham Forest in the top four, right? Newcastle, Brighton, all these guys. Like the fact that right now the top four race is so tight. It's all like it's so it's they only separated by like 1 or 2 points. The fact that that's the case means that there's so much competition across the board now. And I feel like back in the day, maybe it was more exciting because number one, the top six was the top six. If Manchester United is playing Fulham, right? Yeah, man, they're gonna go for it because for the most they know they're probably gonna win the game anyways. It was actually gonna be like a miracle if Fulham won the game or if they drew the game. It was gonna, oh, Man United didn't do enough. It wasn't more like, oh, Fulham actually like they're cooking. But at this point at this point in time, these teams have actually like improved. They've raised the level. So maybe now it's like everyone's just trying to figure out a way because I think there's never been such a time when winning a game is as important as it is now because every point counts, especially this season. So maybe that's why we're seeing a lot more like pragmatism and a lot more like safe play or a lot more like um maybe like tactician, like trying to like low block and this and that because every point counts at this time because everybody's good, everybody's cooking, everybody is doing something different. Everybody, or not different, but like everybody's like, because the Pep system does work. The Pep system brings goals. Like let's be honest. It's not like they're trying to emulate something that sucks. The Pep system cooks. Um, and pretty much anybody can do it if you have the right facilities to do it. So I don't know. Yeah, that's that's
And I,
that's why I'm thinking like that's where we are right now.
I just want to add on here that, yeah, like anybody can try to do it, but,
Yeah.
the Pep system, like Pep has been what he's been able to be because of the players that he has available to him. And Mikel Arteta is probably Pep's best disciple, and even he needed players to come in before he can do anything of note. So it's always the players and the personnel, and I think we're at a stage in this league where the owners, like Mongoro said, they have an idea. They're like, oh, I want that. I want that style, that. And they're just forcing it on their team. They're saying, we're going to bring in this coach and you guys are going to play this way and that's it. And we even see it, I think we see it a little bit with Chelsea, even though it's been successful to a certain degree. But I'm sure we've all asked ourselves, like, what happened to Cole Palmer? You know, what happened to the days where he would just grab the ball on his side of the half and just dribble it, you know, into the opposition side and just take a shot, take three people on and take a shot. You know, you don't see that as much anymore from him. And you also ask yourself, like, the other teams that should be in the European race. Where's Tottenham? Where's Manchester United? You know, Manchester United have been in a coaching crisis, you know, for like since Solskjaer left. You know, they've been under two different managers who all have like very specific ways they want to play. And each time the personnel hasn't caught up to the manager. Right now, the personnel is still very far from the manager's dream. And you have Spurs who, again, many managerial changes, many philosophies, like nothing is sticking, right? And through it all, you have teams like, you know, I'd say the typical mid-table team that are actually benefiting from this chaos. You know, Nottingham Forest, they play a very simple style. It's defend all day and use your wingers and target man on the counter. Newcastle play a very similar system. Aston Villa, you know, Unai Emery, his whole career has been counter-attack, man. That's what he does. Fulham, you saw what they did to Liverpool. Like, these are teams that are benefiting from the fact that there's these very rigid structures that, you know, some managers are putting on. So, in my opinion, I think it's exciting. You know, I enjoy Manchester United struggling a little bit. I enjoy teams trying new things and messing up the league table a little bit. I think it's fun. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is on the players to take some responsibilities in those systems and find their place in it. And also, it is on the managers to not be as rigid in how they play and recognize who they have on their teams. Because, you know, Pep, yes, Pep is Pep, but I'm telling you right now, there's no way in hell Pep would have told Lionel Messi, stay on that wing. You know, at some point, you have to recognize who's on your team and just build the team around them so that they can shine. And I don't think enough managers in the league are doing that.
Yeah, I also want to say that, you know, what's exciting about the league now, I would say as well, as an argument to people saying, oh, this league, like the Premier League is like losing its entertainment value. Back in the day, no one would have watched Stoke City versus West Brom. Like, you're not sitting through that. But now, you watch Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. You watch Brentford versus Brighton. Like, that's a hot game, right?
So
Like,
I'll stop you right there. That is all you, Muta. Don't say that's what people are doing.
okay.
Just
I mean,
speak for
I'm fine. I
yourself.
find it. I love watching.
Okay.
I love watching this other because, like, for me, these teams actually have more. Like, there's actually a lot more excitement. I don't know what it is as compared to, oh, I'm watching Man United versus Leicester City, or I'm watching Man United versus Man City, or I'm watching Arsenal versus Newcastle. Like, yeah, those are good games, but man, when you watch West Ham versus Wolves, the type of things you see in those games, man. Like, I'm telling you, man, I ain't gonna lie, I'm entertained. I think there are less games now that are like, nah, I ain't trying to watch that. I think there are more games now where I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'll watch that game. I don't know if it's also because I'm playing, like, I'm very invested in FPL. It's probably moving hand in hand. But even if it wasn't for that, I also do feel like these games are actually like they're pretty good. They're actually pretty entertaining. As compared to like back in the day when it would be like Stoke City versus West Brom, or, you know, Southampton versus Leeds. You know, that, why would I watch that? So anyway, that's it's good in the long run, I think. But yeah, I mean, obviously you Mongori, you don't watch Wolves versus West Ham, so I know how you
No,
feel.
I value my time. Like, I wouldn't be watching anything that's being coached by Graham Potter. Like, that is not great. And then Wolves as well. Like, okay, maybe Wolves like would be interesting when Cunha's there, but when Cunha's not there and you're watching both Strand Larson and that red card merchant in the middle of the park, forget his name. like Joao Gomez.
Yeah, Joko.
Like,
Yeah.
like there's no need. And then, okay, well, actually, Wolves is interesting. There is a Forest brother there who plays there, Mr. Marshall Munetsi, former Orlando Pirates player. So I know him very well. So maybe I'll tune into Wolves, but not West Ham. Like West Ham, no. Like as much as we have our boy, our Forest brother as well. Wow, there's a lot of Forest brothers in the Premier League. We have our boy there, Mo Kudus. Apart from him, like anything that's being coached by Graham Potter is pretty much just atrocious.
Yeah, but I mean, generally speaking, I think we have a lot more excitement in these other teams as compared to like back in the day. So I mean, in the long run, for me, like I know I've said in previous pods that this is the worst season of the Premier League, but I think it's that because it's transitioning to a new type of Premier League where like everybody is a competitor as compared to we're only used to like five or six or seven competitors. Now everybody can actually compete at a high level. So maybe that's just what it is. And of course Liverpool have benefited from that this season. So it is what it is with that. But I think we're gonna start to see a new change as we go forward. But yeah, man, I think that's a good place to kind of end the pod here. I'll be curious to see, like you said, Liga said about how Man United does moving forward because I just wanted to look at the next kind of fixes here. Like, yeah, I guess we'll get to see like how these guys do and if they keep up with this current way that they're playing. Because Man United play Newcastle next. I'm pretty sure Isak is gonna do some.
Unspeakable
It's
things.
he is. I hope he does because he was kind of quiet when they just played Leicester. But
Yeah.
he's also coming back from injury, so I can understand. But when they do play Man United plays Newcastle, that's going to be a good game. Man United playing Wolves, I can see Strand Larson killing them, So I think, and Man City obviously plays Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace has been really good lately, and Everton, Aston Villa. So we've got some good games. So we'll get to see where people end up.
You could make a legit argument that United could lose every game between now and end of the season. Like, not necessarily. I mean, those are
They
tough
could,
games.
they could
Those
lose
are
all
tough
of them.
games. Like,
Yeah, they
I
could lose
won't
all of
lie.
them. Yeah, yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
The
I
United
actually,
fans won't be pleased by that.
I'm actually not seeing a game where Man United has like a strong like maybe it's Wolves where I could be like, but I don't trust United against Wolves. I don't actually.
Yeah,
Actually, actually,
I
can you
don't
just
either.
can you just give us all the 7 games so that listeners have like the full context as to like what else United has to play for the
So
rest of the
okay,
season?
yeah. So they're playing Wolves. Then oh no, they're playing Newcastle. Then they play Wolves. Then they play Bournemouth. Then they play Brentford. Then West Ham. Then Chelsea. Then the last game is Aston Villa.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, United fans. Like, if Wolves, yeah, like that's a game you should be favorites. But I've seen you at home against Leicester. Like, you guys, like you guys have been bad. Like whenever United has to attack anyone, they suck. And all of these teams are going to attack them relentlessly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not looking good.
The only one maybe where they can have some respite is West Ham because West Ham have also been a little terrible. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the Jared Bowen that turns up on that day could destroy them. So it's not as if West Ham would just take it lying down either. So yeah, they could potentially not win any of these games.
Yeah. It's bleak.
I don't know what that would mean for the boy Amorim, like where he ends up with that. But anyway, we'll just wait and see. But listener, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to this wonderful episode. Let's kind of track what happens next. I think it's gonna be a very good end of the season. Like in the next few run to the end of the season, there's gonna be a lot of interesting things that come up. We'll be right here, talking you through it, walking through it with you. So yeah. But with that, I think that's a good place to end. So, listeners, we will catch you on the next one. Thanks, boys. And yeah, all good.